All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So as I said, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Shayi Shambore, and I'll be taking you through today's webinar. So we're going to be talking about augmented reality in Creo. And so sort of the agenda that we're going to go through today is going to be basically the goal is to demonstrate some of the augmented reality functionalities in Creo and explain the value that's obtained from it, because really augmented reality being so new, a lot of times it's not very clear what the practical benefit is to an end consumer or to a customer. And so we'll explain some of that in this case here. But before we do that, we'll just start with a quick introduction on who we are, Boundary Systems. We'll dive into what is augmented reality, and then we will continue with talking about some of the how it works in Creo, and also with other PTC products as well. And what are some of the benefits that you get out of that, right? And then we'll do a short demonstration plus a video, and then we'll dive into some Q&A at the end, right? All right, so quick blurb about me. This is me, Shayi. I've been with Boundary Systems now for over 7 years, and so have a lot of experience with PTC products. And really, it's one of the things I love to do is to play with cool and niche technologies like augmented reality, Vuforia, and to be able to present that to customers in a way that they can derive value out of it. And so again, this is something I'm always excited to do. And yeah, so about Boundary Systems, so we are a PTC, or really a technology partner, I would say, and we partner with many different software companies, not just PTC, to provide industry-leading services to all of our customers. So anything from PLM to CAD data management or simulation, really anything in the product development landscape, we have the expertise to help customers with. And again, this is just, I guess maybe one more brag slide on some of the awards that we've received over the years. And then also, again, this just shows some of the partners that we support, or I guess that we partner with, again, to bring the best industry-leading solutions to our customers. And in this case, PTC is the main partner behind the product here in this webinar. Right? All right, so so the question then goes, what is augmented reality, or I guess some people sometimes use the phrase mixed reality, right? And so augmented reality is sort of, as you can see from this screenshot over here, it's basically a way for for you to overlay a digital information, right, over over like a physical real world image or video, right? And so that's sort of the in a sort of in a generic sense, that is what augmented reality is. So it superimposes a computer generated image on a user's real world view, right? Now in this example here, this technology has been around for a while. This is basically the cockpit of a C-130, and viewing outside of the windshield, right, on the tarmac, you can clearly see like the taxiway, right, where the plane is. But you can also see, again, some computer generated imagery, right, showing in this case the horizon for the pilot, right, and some other markings that are critical to flight, right? But again, all of that extra information is displayed in a real in an interface or field of view that they're already familiar with, the windshield, right? And so augmented reality, sometimes it's called mixed reality, right? Because it mixes the physical and the virtual worlds together, sort of like in this image right here. And it's different from virtual reality, right? And I know a lot of people sometimes ask that question, what's the difference? In virtual reality, the entire world to a user becomes virtual, the entire physical world is replaced by something completely virtual, right? So, you can sort of think of, a gamer with a PlayStation VR headset, right, in his living room, and with the headset on and the gloves on and everything on, he's in a virtual world playing, for example, Legend of Zelda, right? Well, that that is completely virtual, right? Everything he sees is in the game world, right? Everything he interacts with is in the game world, and sometimes you hear cases of people like that, for example, bumping their legs on tables, or falling over stairs, right? Because there's a disconnect between everything they're seeing completely being virtual versus the physical world that they're still inhabiting, right? In this case, with augmented reality, it mixes both together, so you could see the virtual plus the physical together, and I feel like that provides a real context for the information that's being displayed, right, within a physical world. But it also leads to much greater adoption, because it doesn't require users to have to put on a super expensive VR headset, and also it leads to much less disorientation, right, from being in a completely virtual world. And so, in a nutshell, that's AR. Now, how is it currently consumed? Is the next sort of point here. And in this case, currently how AR is consumed is through the use of digital devices, right? So primarily in this day and age, it's going to be like your mobile phones, right? So your iPhones, your Androids, your Windows phones, or tablet devices as well. And again, the commonality in this case is they all have cameras, right, through which the app sees the physical world, and then a digital image is projected onto that, right? And then finally, you also have like 3D headsets, sort of like in this case the HoloLens, or maybe also like a Vuzix lens, or others as well. Basically a 3D eyewear, right? And again, it's the same concept, in the 3D eyewear, it's, you're basically looking through glasses, so you're still seeing your physical world, but then you're overlaying the virtual world on top of that, right? The difference, between these, for example, is, with a tablet, for example, you have to hold it maybe with 2 hands while you're, viewing the AR experience, versus in this case with the 3D eyewear, it's something that frees both of your hands to be able to do other things with, right? So you can almost imagine, like a manufacturing or a service, organization where, I want to look at instructions on how to replace, a certain part, right? I can use my 3D eyewear, right, to see the replacement instructions virtually, and I can have both hands free to actually replace the part physically, right? All right. So in this case, so now we get into Creo, right? So augmented reality in Creo, what what is it specifically, and how does it sort of work? And so I'll sort of talk through it using this particular example here. So in this case, we're all familiar with Creo, right? So Creo Parametric is it's a CAD software, right, that allows you to create physical, or I guess digital designs of your physical models, right, inside of the software, and then use a whole suite of applications to do everything from marketing to engineering to manufacturing within that software suite, right? So generally, in this case with Creo, what you end up having is customers that design the next level, the next version of their model, completely inside of a virtual world, right? But then there can sometimes be sort of a, well, how do I take this from, being completely virtual to then maybe like having it in sort of a real world sense, right? And what are some of the benefits that you can accrue from that, right? And so that's sort of the thought process behind this here is you already have a virtual model that's created, and what are some of the other use cases you can then apply, on from that, right? So in this case here, we'll basically take that same, virtual model, and in this example here, we're looking at the same model through the lens of in this case an iPad, right? And you could sort of see in this case, this is, an AR experience, right? So we're looking digitally, looking at, the model as is right now in augmented reality. So again, a digital model, right, within a physical space, right? And so what AR provides in terms of benefits is a few different, key value propositions, right? So the first is, the ability to use it in, something like a design review, right? And so again, this is, you have, a presentation or design review session, right? Where you have your virtual model that you've already created in Creo, right? And you want to be able to display that to, stakeholders, whether inside the company or outside the company, right? Normally, the way, that sometimes done is you're having to, make a prototype, which takes, which costs a lot of money and also leads to a longer lead time before you can actually get the prototype, right, to show, right? Or, sometimes there's going to be the thought process of, well, why don't we just, additively manufacture this, right? So let's, take this and send it to a 3D printer, right? Well, in that case, to 3D print your device, right, would still take, I would sometimes, 12, 16, 24 hours or even longer for the 3D printer to print out your part, right? And then not even to talk about, post-processing it, removing the support material, and getting it to a finished product to where it's presentable, and then you could take it into a conference room and present it to your colleagues, right? Versus in this case, in Creo, you could literally take your Creo model, and with one push of a button, you can publish that model straight to the cloud, right? And anyone with a link can then click on that and then view your model, virtually inside of what's it called? Inside of a virtual space like this. In this case, with an iPad, right? And so this makes your product design reviews much more interactive, right? It makes it much more real world, right? You're able to put your product in context, right, of where it's going to be, right? You can almost imagine, you're designing, for example, a tabletop, blender, right? And you're able to publish that, right? And you're in a mock-up of a kitchen, right, where you have a countertop space, and you can then use your AR, tablet to project that blender in real life size, onto the tabletop, right? And you can see, okay, well, how tall is it? Is it gonna bump against the cabinet or not, or things like that, right? You can start to, evaluate some of those fit issues very quickly and easily. In this case, with just a push of a button, right? All right. So next, example is going to be in this case when it comes to marketing, right? Or using AR in the case of a marketing benefit, right? And so in this example here, again, the same AR experience, you're able to see, the digital model in the background, right? But you can also create, some sort of call outs, right? In this case, you can see those sort of green circles on the model. And as you select on any of those callouts, right, you can then show some additional marketing information, right, for that particular product, right? So you can sort of think of that as, for example, you could show features or benefits, right, of that object. You could sort of show part numbers. You could show any other spare parts or replacement parts for that product. You can also show any performance improvements as well, right? So you could sort of show, hey, here's an AR experience, right? If you click on this, you can see what engine we currently have in there. But FYI, there's also these additional accessories that you can add onto the engine, right? So if you want, you can add, a turbocharger to the engine and then take it from X horsepower to Y horsepower, right? All of that information you can show virtually to a customer. So that way, if they're trying to soup up their snowmobile, for example, and of course, a turbocharger in the snowmobile example, with it doesn't really make sense. But again, conceptually speaking, if they want to, configure their product right now, virtually in front of them, they have all the options that they need in order to know what they want to do with their product, right? So again, this makes your product much more than just a static 2D image, right, with text that explains what it does, right? Your customer is actually viewing everything there in real time, right? All right. All right. Next benefit that you can get from using AR is going to be when it comes to improved employee training, right? And so again, that's one of the things where um, currently, whether due to an aging workforce or due to inexperienced employees that you need to get up to speed much quicker, right? You now have a case where there's a greater need or demand for employee training, right? And the quicker you can train someone on the exact work tasks to do, right, in the exact steps or procedures, the more productive they can be, right? And so in this case here, this is something where, again, you could sort of isolate systems, right, in this case within the AR experience, right, and start to show employees or vendors in this case, here are the different subsystems, for example, or here's the different parts, or if you want to take apart the fuel tank, right, here's what you do, here are the screws here's where they're located, right? In the AR image, you can sort of show animations to pull them out and then show the steps to, for example, take out and replace a fuel tank, right? And so again, that means that you're able to go from novice to someone that can take out a wrench and pull out a fuel tank, for example, in much less time, because this isn't something that you're able to read in a book, right? It's something that you can very clearly, easily see, in an AR experience, and then start to practice, right? And the other thing again is because the AR experience is basically a digital representation of the physical model, right? There's going to be an exact one-to-one match, right? So again, there's going to be a seamless transition to a worker going from, hey, I see this digital model, it has 4 screws on it, right? And whenever I go to the physical snowmobile to take it apart, I can see those 4 screws exactly where they are in the same position that the digital model told me they'll be in, right? So again, that makes it much easier to work with, right? Right. All right. And then the next is going to be when it comes to maintenance procedures as well. And again, this is sort of similar to the prior example, but in this case, not only are we talking about training our workers, but this is also take just a simple standard operating procedure, right? So if you want to maintain, for example, a factory assembly line, right? So we all know that, hey, we do step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3, right? Well, that's something that could easily be put inside of an AR experience, right? So that way, any worker who is going to be doing that maintenance, it doesn't matter if it's Bob today or Jim tomorrow, right? Any worker who's going to be doing that maintenance changeover, right, can easily see in a few clicks or a few steps what's going to be going on, right? How they're going to have to replace it, and with just a few clicks, they can be very productive when it comes to actually replacing that object, right? So again, this is an additional benefit where it reduces maintenance errors or mistakes, right? You could clearly see, for example, hey, after you take out these 4 bolts and you replace this particular object, you can go ahead and put those 4 bolts back in, right? So it minimizes the case of a person, for example, putting in only 2 bolts, right? Or doing something incorrectly, or not removing part B before getting to part C, right? Maybe doing it the other way around because they're not really aware of how the actual procedural steps to get it done, right? All of those different things you don't have to do. All those different things are obviated because you can see the AR experience and see the maintenance steps to get everything done immediately, right? All right. And I think this might be the last slide here. So we'll also talk about, in this case, how you can use AR for performance monitoring as well. And so basically, in the case of performance monitoring, one of the beautiful things about augmented reality and being linked to the physical world is you can take, for example, a virtual model, right? Or I guess a physical model, right? You can instrument it with sensors and strain gauges and devices to measure certain information on a physical object, right? Beam that data in real time to the cloud, right? And then retrieve that, inside of an AR experience, right? So that way, users can see clearly in real time what's going on with the physical object that that is being run, right? So an easy example of this is what's it called? Take for example, a customer that has a huge piece of industrial machinery that that is expensive to buy, right? Expensive to shut down to maintain, right? If there's an unscheduled shutdown, that could be expensive, right? And also, it's expensive if it's ever offline because it's not generating any revenue, right? Well, in that case, if you want to go ahead and so one of the things you can do is start to instrument that device, right? Say, hey, let's put a pressure sensor here. Let's put a a temperature sensor here. Let's put another sensor here, right? And so that and that information can be beamed directly to the cloud, right? So that way, while this machine is in operation, someone at a control center in the office, right, can see, hey, this machine X, right, is running at much higher temperatures than designed, right? Today, right? What's going on? How can we fix it? And you can start to initiate what's it called, a maintenance ticket to go ahead and remediate that issue, right? Again, this is something that you know all of this can be done without having to physically be at the machine, right? And so that way, it reduces maintenance service calls, right? And saves a lot of cost. But you can again still be able to physically, interact with, I guess, virtually interact with the model, right? Because it's been physically instrumented, and then you can use that data, in the virtual world to troubleshoot and analyze the model, right? And so these are just some of the different use cases and examples of what you can do in terms of augmented reality inside of Creo Parametric. And so at this point, I'll pause here, and I think this may be the last slide here. So oh, all right. So I'll pause here, and we'll go ahead and show show a quick example of this over here. Yeah. So well, give me a second here while I switch switch screens. So. All right, cool. So in this case here, what we have right now is Creo Parametric, right? So again, for any users that are familiar with Creo, so this is the model, right? And in this case, I'm not going to go through any design of how to create this model or the entire assembly. Really, the goal of this is to see how you can take this again from a physical, or from a virtual world like this to something that's much more concrete, almost a physical environment, right? And so in this example here, first off, if you want to create an AR experience of this snowmobile right now, Creo makes it incredibly easy, right? And so really all you can do is, if you click on tools, right, there's the ability to go ahead and publish an augmented reality experience of your model, right? What's going to happen is you're going to have to specify a target, right? You define and place that spatial target, right, within within your Creo window, right? And once you place that in there, you can go ahead and then publish your model as an augmented reality experience, right? So again, with one click button, right, you can go ahead and hit publish over here, and then publish that experience, right? Now there are a few different experience services. The personal one, I think it's a freemium that I think allows up to 5 experiences, and anyone can view, and so this is something where any Creo user right now can, right after this webinar, you can actually do this. You can go to your desk, open up any model in Creo, and you'll see that option there to publish the model, and you can go ahead and publish that, and then start to play with it, right? I believe this is added in Creo 5 and 6, and so you want to be on those 2 versions, right? But again, if you can do that, you could start to interactively model, or I guess play with your models in real time, right? Inside of an AR experience, right? In this case, I'll go over here to this, what's it called, to the manage model button over here, because in this case you can, it pulls out this dashboard where you can see any AR experiences that you've published, right? You can set access controls, right? You can share the AR experience as well. And so in this example here, this is the snowmobile that's just in the screen back there. If I go ahead and hit share, you'll notice what happens. It immediately pulls out the screen where I can email this to coworkers, colleagues, customers, right? And it immediately shows me, in this case, a URL with a QR code that pulls out this AR experience, right? Now this is something where, right now in this case, I can specify this to be viewed with a mobile device, right? So again, phone, tablet, or I can specify this to be viewed, with a 3D eyewear. So again, think, a 3D headset like a Vuforia lens or something, right? Again, I could I could do this, and in all of one click, I can send this out immediately, right? And so now again, in this case, I'm not going to do this because I already have. Well, I guess you'll have to have a virtual. You'll have to have a device, either like a phone or a tablet, to show the experience on. And in this case, I don't have a phone plugged in this case to the webinar. But what we'll do is we'll actually just pause this here really quickly and show show a quick example of what this is going to look like, right? And so again, I'll switch screens really quickly here, and we'll jump straight into a super quick video, right? That just sort of shows what's happening, right? So in this case, we're starting off. Again, this is a tablet, right? Where we're sort of going to start placing our snowmobile, right? And in this case, you can see that very quickly we're able to place that snowmobile, right, in a physical space, right? In this case, on a tile floor, right? You can see over here, for example, any marketing information that you want to show, right? So in this case, hey, here's all the information about the suspension, or here's the information about the rear track, right? Again, all of that you can show that and use that to convey product information to a customer, right? Influence buying decisions. Let them know, hey, you currently have engine X in this model with certain performance, but we also have engines Y and Z, right? That also improve the performance as well, right? Another thing that you could also start to see with this, for example, is design variants, right? Hey, what if we show you with the one with the red body panel, or the one with the blue body panel, or the one with the yellow body panel, or the black body panel, or whatever it is, right? So you can start to show those, again, colors and variants, right, to customers very quickly and easily, right within the AR experience like this, right? And so again, they're able to sort of influence buying decisions, right? Because now all they can just do is choose, hey, which one do I like, which works for me, which works for my personality, right? And so this is, again, an incredibly easy way to sort of take a product from a virtual world, right, to a physical world very quickly, and then start to show everything about it, right? Another example in this case here is going to be what's it called, the live performance monitoring, right? And so what we're showing here is, you know, sort of what's it called, CFD streamlines, right, of airflow around the snowmobile, right? So again, if you're a CFD analyst, this is something where you could actually, you know, take your tablet, stand in position right where the seat is on the snowmobile, and you could see those streamlines coming towards you, right? And so this gives a whole new meaning to, you know, CFD, you know, analysis driven design, right? Because now you can sort of, you know, get a better feel for airflow around the object, right? But again, all of that CFD data is stuff that's just being beamed from a server, right? Which again sort of goes to that, you know, thought of performance monitoring, right? In that case, you could sort of see those two flippers, right, animate back and forth, right? Again, you can use that to show product operation, right? You know, how your device is meant to operate. And you could also use it to show, what's it called, you know, maybe some sort of like maintenance instruction or replacement steps, right? You know, where you can show an animation that shows, hey, this is how this thing moves out, and here's how you can push different components to remove them, or you can, you know, these are the bolts to remove, and this is how you can, you know, the sequence in which you should remove something, right? Next over here, you can also show, you know, assembly instructions as well, or sort of training procedures, right? So in this case, what we're doing here is we're going through some of the different subsystems of the snowmobile, right? And again, with each selection, you'll notice how it sort of, you know, occludes the rest of the model, but only shows the subsystem in view, right? And so this is something where you could sort of say, hey, if we want to go replace a certain valve on the cooling system, right? Let's pull out the cooling system for you, right? Let's see where it is, and then I can walk with the tablet in hand, point out that valve, and then show you how you can go ahead and replace it, right? And so again, these are just, you know, some of the different examples of you know, many of the things that you can do with, again, all of this from a Creo model, and being able to take that and then apply that, you know, into an AR platform, right? And so, yeah, again, I'll let this video keep playing for a little bit here. And if you have any questions, by all means, you know, ask them in the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll go ahead and take a look at those questions and answer them either now or also at the end of the webinar as well, or we'll follow up afterwards. Right. Cool. All right. So at this point, you know, we'll sort of, you know, dive into what's it called? Some questions and answers. Just right after the end of this video here. Actually, we'll just go ahead and pause this right here, and we'll go ahead and switch to some Q&A. All right. So at this point, if you have any questions, you know, please, you know, type them in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar pane. So you might have to pick on the red arrow to expand it out, right? And then you can, you know, type in any questions you have in there, and our team will receive them over here, and we can go ahead and answer whatever questions you have. Just a super quick correction there. For the AR design share, that's free. In Creo 5, there's the ability was to publish, you know, 5 free experiences at a time, and in Creo 6, that limit has increased to 10 free experiences actually. So, you know, with Creo 6, you can publish, you know, 10 free AR experiences. So this is something you could all try at your desk. So again, just wanted to confirm that. The one question I did have here is, you know, when it comes to viewing the AR experience, you know, what is the viewing medium? And you could sort of see, you know, in the video there we had, you know, the iPad open. so there's the app in, is called Vuforia View. And so you think of, Euphoria, but the E is replaced with a V, so Vuforia. Um, and then View. So and basically that's the app where you can, when you open that app, you have the ability to scan the QR code like I showed there inside of Creo, right? Once the QR code is emailed to you, or if it's emailed, with a link, when you pick on that link, it'll immediately open up the Vuforia View app, and within that, Vuforia View, you can then go ahead and start to see and play with the AR experience exactly as it was in that tablet over there on screen. And again, the Vuforia View is a completely free app that you can get on any of the app stores. Apple, I guess Windows Phone, Android, or also Apple as well. Right. See, another question here: is there a way to integrate a Creo AR model with a third-party software analysis software, say like Ansys for CFD, or does this work with applications only native to Creo? Let's see. So that is something that that more than likely you'll have to touch base on. Yeah, I would want to say generally it's native to Creo, but again, that's something I'd want to confirm and touch base with the question asker after the webinar on. I do, yeah, I'll just leave it right there and touch base afterwards, because yeah, I don't want to misspeak on that one. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. So doesn't look like there are any other questions. So again, thank you so much for your time on this webinar. I really appreciate having you on here. And again, hope this sort of paints a picture of what you can use AR for within Creo, and also how you can consume it outside of Creo as well. We'll be having a few more of these webinars where we actually show how you can not only use it for within Creo, but also configure a lot of those AR experiences with the glyphs, with the animations, and all of that as well, using Vuforia Studio. So some of those webinars are going to be coming up later on in the future, so keep an eye out for them on the email blasts. But that's it over here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in on this edition of Boundaries Webinar Wednesdays. Thanks, and you have a good one. Bye.